You know what I'm
Borat.
talking about? Borat.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I'm your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Solis. Micah, how are you this morning?
I'm great. And I gotta say this for anyone listening on Spotify, make sure you go to our YouTube channel because you will see our boy Trey here in some awesome shades. He's gone full longevity.
I'm trying out I'm channeling my inner biohacker. I'm going blue light blockers.
That's awesome.
It's a look. It's a look. I'm not saying this is a forever thing, but I'm going to give it a try and see if it helps the sleep.
They look good on you, man. They look good on you.
Thanks. All right. Moving on. No one gives a rip about it. Today, we're going to be talking about leveling up. So going from 250K to 500, or maybe 500 to a million, or maybe a million to 2 million. You know, I know each of you are at a different spot. And so leveling up means different things to different people. Micah has recently hit the 7-figure mark in 4 years. And I know he doesn't want to make it about him, but I'm going to use that as proof anyways. And so we're just going to talk about, what it looks like to level up. So Micah's now entering into uncharted territory, going from that 1.5 area to how do I get to 2? How do I get to 5? And so we're going to talk about that. And, no matter where you're at on your journey, maybe you're at 100K and maybe that's a lot and you're trying to get to 5 or whatever. But we're going to talk about how to get to the next level. But before we do that, let's talk about today's sponsor, Insurance Xdate. We love them. Generate leads, win new business. Insurance Xdate is where new business begins. Industry relevant data delivered on a software platform built for sales, not research. Identify and engage with prospects in minutes. Keep track of your opportunities and get production done. We have a link in the show notes for you to go get a free trial. Go check it out. Can't recommend them enough. It is literally the heartbeat, the backbone of Micah Solis's program, system, whatever you want to call it. So, yep. All right, moving on. Micah, let's talk all things leveling up. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, I think this is an important topic, and I'm glad you mentioned it from the get-go, is that leveling up means different things to different people, right? And so a lot will depend on your commission splits. Maybe you're totally content. You want to be at 750 because you're making 70%, right? Or maybe you're only making 25%. You really need to get to 2 million because that's where that will get you to the income level that you want to get to, whatever. So I think that's important. The one challenge, and I've gotten calls from various producers on this, is what seems to be the biggest roadblock for most people. And I'm saying at an agency where you are provided an account manager and you have some marketing support, so you're not doing it all yourself. Now, we'll talk for everybody on this episode, but if you're doing it all yourself, like you have your own account manager, you don't have your own account manager, you're doing your own apps, you don't really have a marketing team, there's going to be different levels, I think, that you can really get to running that model. So, but first I want to speak, what the guys I talk to a lot are the guys at 1.5 range. So it could be 1.4 to 1.7, let's just say, and they kind of feel stuck. Typically what I'm hearing from these folks is like, hey, I'm just so busy on all my renewals, and with client issues coming up and stuff like that I don't have time to really prospect anymore. And my new business numbers are suffering, right? Unless I get a good referral, but it's not predictable. And they're like, hey, how do you have time to do 40 calls a day or all that stuff? And so every time I get a call like this, first of all, I congratulate these people, because if you're listening to this and you're at a $1.5 million book, that's awesome. I've never been that high, right? I've, 1.2, now I'm about just over 1 again for the second time. So I've never been to 1.5 yet. I hopefully will be there this year. So first of all, congrats. That's awesome. And then, there's guys $2-3 million books, whatever. One of the questions to ask yourself is like the law of diminishing returns, right? Like, don't just grow for the sake of growing, because you might not be any happier, right? And I see this a lot with my contracting clients. A lot of them are like, I'm choosing to stay at a $8 million revenue business or a 9 million. They're like, once you get past that 10, then you got to invest in resources, spend capital, and just headaches become crazy. Life's not enjoyable anymore. So that is one question to ask yourself, is like, why do you want to level up? Are you just doing it to keep up with the Joneses? Are you doing it, like what is your reason? Is the agency forcing you to, and that's why you have to? And if that's what the answer is, hey, that's what it is. For me personally, this might seem odd, but I've used the Sim City analogy before. I'm just wired to enjoy growing things and seeing things grow. And so like I loved Sim City as a kid. And so I loved seeing the cities just build and grow and grow and keep getting bigger. And that's how I've always viewed my like sales. Anytime I've done, especially with insurance, my book, I just like to see the growth side of it. It's fun for me. That's like what gets me going. So that's kind of like why, once you get to a certain level and you have all the money that you really need, like, or maybe it's, you want to help a poor family across the street from you. I don't know, whatever the answer is, figure out why you want to level up. Because maybe the answer is maybe you don't need to level up, or maybe you could level up naturally or organically. And so that looks a little bit different than really keeping your foot on the gas and trying to like add a team member, hit more trade shows, add social media, all this other stuff. Maybe you don't need to do all that. Maybe you are, those are all just kind of things that you think will make you happy, but really won't in the end. Right. And so only you have that answer. I don't know. Everyone's different. So if you are at that 1.5 though, and like want to level up, I think, or let's just talk 5. Let's just talk in general. I got lost where I was going, Trey. That's where I need you to bring me back.
Hey, I'm here. You're fine.
Yeah.
Well, we all are at different places, but I think to level up, it all comes down to the same few things. Organization, leverage, delegation,
retention,
and retention. I think, whether you're at, excuse me, sneeze.
Bless you.
More than anything, it's like a number of clients to support staff. So,
and type of clients.
You may have, once you get to 50 clients, if your average revenue size is, $2,500, then you're not going to be very high, but that's still a lot to you. And so how do you break through to that next plateau? Whereas let's say you're a big dog at a big commercial shop and you've got 50 clients at 100 in revenue, but still breaking through is still the same thing, So
yeah. And I will say this, I think what's going to happen, I don't have a crystal ball, but with AI advancing and automating a lot of tasks that your account managers or client managers do, what's going to happen is they're going to expect more, of course, right? It's business. They're going to expect that client manager who used to manage $1 million book to now manage 2 or 3 because everything's automated. They're just kind of facilitating. And so then what are they going to expect out of you, the producer? Right? That's a question you got to ask yourself. And so maybe if you're on the fence of like, do I go to a big agency? Do I stay at a smaller agency? Do I start my own thing? That's one thing to also consider. It's like, what does the future look like in 5-10 years? Or my commission split's going to be cut now because retention should be quote unquote easier, right? It should be easier to grow a bigger book. You have more free time to do sales. Those are all different things just to think about. But I think, the core thing of what I was saying is like, figure out a size you need to get to. And then you got to ask yourself, do you want to grow organically or do you still want to be very intentional? I would still cast a vote for still always being intentional about trying to hit some type of minimum new revenue number because things happen. That's the biggest thing I would say is like, you can't really sit and be complacent. And so maybe you don't really need to level up, but you want to maintain. And even to maintain though, you need to have a number in your mind that says, okay, now I've made it. If I at least do 100K of revenue every year, I know that I'll probably always maintain about a $1.5 million book. Right. And that the reason it's important to kind of figure this out before is because you'll always be unsatisfied if that's like, if you want to do 400,000, you want to keep running, like hitting those high numbers you were hitting in your growth years. Well, then that's a different strategy than just sitting there and maintaining, but maintaining doesn't mean sitting and not prospecting at all. That's one thing I want to be clear about because then your book will shrink. It's just, with all the consolidation happening, people getting bought up, so much competition out there. There's all these young guys out here trying to cold call prospects left and right. Like you're going to get accounts eaten up, and so don't think that that's a good strategy.
What are the few things you're focusing on to try to get to the next level?
Yeah, so here's kind of the thoughts I have. The first one is I want to get better at leveraging client relationships. And what this looks like to me is, I already have 35 clients, right? So how do I get more intentional with building those relationships? Because that doesn't come natural for me. Let me take that back. I'm fine at building relationships, but I'm not like the guy who's going to take them for hunting trips and do all this crazy stuff. I'm not like a huge wine and dine guy. I'm more like, hey, let's go to lunch. I'll be super professional. I'll be very responsive, communicative. I'll check in on you. We'll talk every couple, maybe once a month. That's kind of my style, but I'm not like, let's go hunting and fishing and all this other stuff once a quarter or once a year. We're not going to go to the Caribbean. And so my thing is, so how do I get more intentional and have better conversations with my clients? I think a couple different things I'm thinking of is, one is, how can I get better at connecting my clients to people that I think will help their business, right? Also moving away from insurance conversations and talking just business conversations. Because I think relationships get to a different level when you get outside of your lane and you're talking business overall. And so one way I'm trying to do that is leveling up with my knowledge of financials. So I've been really diving into like financial stuff. I've been reading some books on construction in general. Um, and then I'm trying to connect my clients with certain people, right? Like maybe I know I have a client that he wants to sell probably in 5 years. I took him golfing with a guy that's a prospect also that runs a kind of a PE firm. And so he was super happy to get that connection, right? And so that's what I mean by being just more intentional and strategic and taking time to actually focus on that, looking through my client list. Okay, this quarter, who are my five client? What are my 5, 6 clients that I should really plan a lunch for, or do something for, and then go into those lunches or those conversations with like they're more the higher level business, not just insurance, and getting into conversations around like their exit strategy, their where do they want to be in 5 years, all that kind of stuff that is good to talk about, but just being more intentional around it.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to check you. I'm going to check you on that in a couple of
Thank
weeks,
you.
see if you've
Thanks.
actually done it.
Well, a couple of weeks. I have already started doing it like a month ago. So like the cool thing is I bought this book for construction companies. It's all about like running a profitable construction business. And I've already actually had 2 clients, had a prospect order it that I was talking to, but a client order it for his team. And then I had another client just text me last Friday. He's like, hey man, what's that book that you talked about again? I have a long trip coming on. And so he ordered it, and so those no one's ever doing that about insurance, right? A client's not like, hey, Micah, what was that insurance policy you talked about? It's like, so it's like, yeah. So anyways, I have been more intentional the last 2 months and I tend to keep it up. That's kind of my deal. But this book has been a great way to do that for me because I'm not, I know insurance really well, but it's really helped kind of broaden my perspective of like an insurance company or a construction company, right? My second thing, this is probably what the foundation of everything is a good team. So first of all, make sure you have a good client manager, advocate, right? Uh, this is where you need to work on your own leadership skills and your own, like, how do you make your account manager feel valued and feel like they're doing a good job and all, and like they want to work hard for you, right? They want to kind of go the extra mile for you. So I know it sounds cheesy, but you are a leader as a producer, especially if you have a client manager that's working with you. And the key, I think, a couple keys around this is, one, communications. Be talking with all your client managers consistently. The less client managers you have to work with, I think, the better. I think there's a value of having more than one, but I think there's also a does you a disservice to have 15. So if you can kind of have like 2 to 3, then not all your eggs are in one basket, but you have not so many relationships out there you got to try to manage. Um, but I think having systems and being on the same page about the systems around the renewal, and what that would look like is, hey, Susie, 120 days out for every client. I shouldn't even have to ask you, right? And you say this in a nice way, but I don't want to have to ask you. This is kind of just our system we're going to have in place. You send me automatically the renewal packet and last year's apps on every client, you know, or maybe you want to add claims history in there so you can kind of get a fresh perspective on claims. That's what I want. You sent me 120 days out on every client. No questions asked, let's just be on the same page there. Great. Okay. When I get you the stuff back, what I want is you take it out to the market. I'll tell you the markets, but set a time frame 30 days out from renewal. So that's what I mean by having those processes in place. A lot of agencies might do that for you, but maybe your agency doesn't, or maybe even if they do, maybe they just seem so kind of distant. So just make sure that you're on the same page with your team. when it comes to the processes and procedures. The other thing that I think you could do to help, I've been trying to play around with this a little bit, is like CSR 24, right? Or there's like all these, speaking of AI, there's like some cert issuing software out there. And so like we have like CSR 24 has been around for years, and I know you can issue certs on it, but a lot of times we can only issue simple certs, and every agency is different. Some don't want to give their clients the power, so it depends on your agency here. But if you have an agency that allows you, to, if you have a client that allows you to have that power to issue certs or to let clients issue their own certs, setting up all your clients on CSR 24, right? And then when you bring them on board, it's more like, hey, we got this really cool tool, allows you to issue your certs instantaneously, almost like within a minute. I made a video for a client of mine, for one of my clients on this deal, made a video, sent it to her, it took a minute and a half, and I showed her how to issue a cert. Sent it to them. It was a cert heavy client, and that helped my account manager free up her time, right? And so that's just one example, but there's a million out there.
Yeah, you've got a lot of these mom and pop or solo guys out there. And so I know they're sitting there thinking, well, yeah, it must be nice if I've got, a CSR and an AE and whatever, a team, but it's just me and a receptionist, or maybe even it's just them and a VA, or maybe just them. I mean,
Yep.
So these little tech things, CSR 24, hiring a VA, finding some way to build a SOP around something and automate it, I think is worth diving into and trying to build out, especially if you're a one-man shop.
Yeah, and there's I was doing some research around this, and there's a company called like Certificial, I think. And so I called one of the producers that uses it, that was endorsing it. He said most of his clients, he never issues certs for 90% of his clients. He sets them up that way where they automatically go on this deal and issue it, and it's no cost to you, the agency. So there's some different things that I would look into that are pretty cool around that to help streamline things. Okay. Next one. This seems pretty basic. Organize your time, right? And what I mean here is, again, if you got to a $1.5 million book, you're probably already doing pretty well. Or if you got to a $500,000 book with no client advocates or client managers, you've done pretty well, I think, honestly. If you're having to do a lot of work yourself, and I would hope you're making a higher split if you're at that level, like hopefully 50, 60%. But if you're there, you've got to keep prospecting a priority. Not saying it needs to necessarily be number one, because maybe it does move to retention, right? And diving in deeper with clients as you grow and managing your team. But it still should be like a top 2-3 priority, just to because you have to maintain, right? Your business, if you're not, it's like the old quote, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that is true. And so again, you don't need to grow at the same rate you grew at when you were zero, starting out, but maybe you like pick that number. And so the number, I think a good number is probably that 100, depending on your agency and the size you're at. But if you're in a focus on middle market stuff, I think 100 is a good number, where it's like you're basically buying yourself insurance every year to maintain where you're at. That's what you're doing. And it's just putting it, starting your week out, looking at your calendar, where do you have free time, and keeping that front of mind. Like, okay, this is my free time to make calls, to prospect.
You make less calls now than you did when you were starting over. Let's just clear that up, because I have people reach out. They're like, there's no way Micah makes 40 calls a day. Yeah, and I'm like, that's the ideal, right? But it's
correct.
Happens.
If I have free time in a slow week, yes, I typically do. If it's a week where fires are going on, or it's a really busy renewal season, no, I don't. But also, again, when you're making those 40 calls in your first couple of years, now you have all those seeds planted, and hopefully it's a lot easier to kind of just touch base with those people, and do all that. So
are you on your list? Do you have anything about leverage?
Well, I talked about leveraging client relationships. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna chime in here, and I don't know that you have this on your list, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. I think one of the things that you do really well is leveraging your time with your book. So, and I think you could get way better at it. But you took the time to write a book, which just is a massive lever, so that when you talk to people, you then send it to them, or sometimes you send it in advance and it just pre-sells you before you get on the phone. And
Yep.
so if I were $1 million producer or whatever, if I was a producer who was limited on time and I was trying to figure out how to get more bang for my buck, I would write a book, or I would
Mm.
hire someone to write a book for me.
Or the
Because I think
newsletter
that,
side of it. What's your thoughts there?
yeah, and no, this is not a shameless pitch
No,
on my
no,
new
I'm just
content done
genuinely.
for you business, but I honestly, I think it comes down to like, how do you leverage your time the best? You know, how you leverage your time when you first start off is different than how you leverage your time as you get, further down the road on whatever it is you do in your career. But I think one of the biggest thing, like, I think if I had got to the point to where I could no longer make 40 calls a day, I would take the money that I had earned and I would invest it in writing a book, so that even though I made fewer touches, there was more return on those touches because I had leveraged my time and my IP into print.
And
Just my
here's
two
how
cents.
to take that a step further. Again, if I was really good at leveraging this book, which I joke with Trey, for you guys listening. I said, Trey, man, I should have hired you when I launched this book just to take care of all the stuff, like getting it into hands of associations, right? That would have been super smart. I didn't do that. Uh, there's so many mistakes I made, because then that leads to speaking engagements, right? Now you speak and you have an audience of 30 people. You wrote a book. I guarantee one or two of those will come up to you afterwards, right? I did a little bit of it, but not aggressively. Like I got in like one or two speaking engagements from it, but that should have been like a concerted effort. When the book came out, I got it in my hands. I should have made a list of all the associations in the Austin area down to San Antonio, and I should have been like, everyone's getting a book with a handwritten letter, and I'm going to follow up with them like I would a prospect, right? And I'm also, that's how you leverage it, right? Also going to send it out to publishers. I could have sent it to construction journals. I could have sent it to um, podcasters like this that are very niche, but for construction. That was so stupid, right? Like I should have like, hey, I wrote a book for contractors, Mr. Podcaster. I know insurance isn't a sexy topic, but read the book. I think this would help people. I mean, dude, there's so much, and I could still do all this stuff. This is my problem. I have all these ideas, but I'm more of like, I need to see results now. And so that's where I'm like really honing in on the cold calling. It leads to quick results. It has for 15 years. But that is something now that my book's kind of at this level where it's like, do I step back and do some of this stuff as well, be more intentional with that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, you have money, right? Like, so you have money to
Yeah,
invest. You can hire a
correct.
VA or hire somebody to do that. It's like we talk about, you have the, let me see if I don't butcher this, but like the 4 levers are capital, people, code, and media. And so the old ones are capital and labor, right? That's how you build. The old industries were built in the past. Now it's media and code. And so you have money now to hire someone, and you have the media. Go get somebody to start sending that shit out for you in advance, because you have the money now. You have the scarcest resource, and you have a book. You're like the only dude that has a book besides maybe like 2 or 3 other guys. But anyways, neither here nor there. Figuring out ways to leverage, right? We have code, we have media, we have ways to leverage our time now. And so what's the best way to do that?
Yep.
So moving on. I think that's a great plateau buster.
Okay. Another one, this is again going to be for the guys more in the 1.5 plus space, and depending on your agency setup, this could also dictate, but just an idea of what I've seen some people try is like a junior broker, right? So you get a guy who's young, you could pay him a, relatively low salary plus commission and split deals with him. And he's out there and you mentor him for like, you tell the guy, like, this is going to be a 1 to 3 year, probably not one, probably a 2 to 3 year plan. I'm going to bring you in. We're going to split these deals. We'll figure out, and after 3 years is up, we'll kind of reevaluate. Maybe he gets some clients, maybe you get some. And so that is another way to grow. I know, like wholesale brokers, right? They'll grow on this model, right, where you get a team underneath you and all that stuff. But I've seen some retail guys do it as well. I think it's a great way from an agency standpoint to build kind of a farm system, if you will, for future talent. So I haven't done that yet. I've been talked to about it.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I've
I
just been talking
always
to
have a
about
hard
it.
time figuring out wherever you're stopping.
Oh, because I sometimes got to pause to gather my thoughts, man, because I talk fast. So sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, I know a guy at a mid-market shop who's got, I know he's north of 3 mil and he's north of 2 mil, and his plan to get to 5 mils. He just hired a biz dev rep. So
Yep.
basically he is in a certain niche, and he wanted to start what they call green fielding. Like, he wanted to open up a new market. So he basically hired a biz dev rep to go around kissing babies, shaking hands in Texas.
Yep.
Right. And so
But
that's
when you
how
got a
he's
$2
breaking
million
into that
book,
market. He just
right?
pays his little biz dev
$100
rep
grand. Yeah. He's
whatever.
probably
I don't know how
making,
much you pay, but I mean, there's ways to, tickle the cat. I was told skinning the cat is inappropriate, so I like tickle
oh,
the cat. So there's more than one way to tickle the cat. I think that's a smart way to leverage your time.
never heard that
Again,
one.
you have money, capital. How do you leverage it to put time back on your plate?
Yep. Yep. No, that's a good one. And yeah, you got to invest. Yeah. So invest money, right? You're gonna have to invest your money. Some agencies provide a fund to do that. Sometimes they don't. I don't know. Or maybe your splits are so high. But if you have a $2 million book and you're making, let's just say 40%, that's 800 grand a year. So maybe you take, 80 grand of that, invest in another person, whatever, or maybe your agency you're at subsidizes part of that, whatever. But I'm just throwing out the idea.
If I
Uh,
was if I was 25 and someone offered me 80 grand to just drive around and shake hands and kiss babies and set meetings and I was just breaking into the industry, that's a no-brainer.
yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
then
it's a
there's
great
no
opportunity.
I would have, dude, I would have done that at 25.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Number 5, and this is the most obvious one probably, but get larger clients, right? So this could be going from average size of 5K to 10K. Could be going from 25K to 40K. It's just going to depend on whatever size book you have now and how much client managers you have underneath you to help and all that good stuff. So that's what I would say is get larger clients. How this is done practically speaking, though, one thing, raise your floor. And so instead of calling guys that you think, the floor is probably 10, 15K. Well, if you get over $1 million book, maybe you raise that floor to 20, 25, right? And then the other thing to think about is harder filtering, harder pre-calling. We've all gone back and forth on BOR only versus quoting versus due diligence versus whatever. This is where I think as you get more established, you maybe lean more dogmatically to BOR only, right? Because now your book's 1.5 and now you're like, I don't really need to be quoting anything now, right? Even if I like the guy, like we talked about before, it makes sense. I think I can win. You still can, but maybe you're super selective and maybe you only, your goal is to 90% BOR, or maybe it's 100%, whatever. You can make that decision. But that definitely filters stuff real quickly. So that's the great way to filter and to make sure that you're not wasting your time on opportunities that are sucking, time away from you. But yeah, that's it, man. That was my 5 tips to leveling up. I think we covered it pretty well.
Let me see if I got this right. Leveraging client relationships, organize your time better, get better at team building and delegation, the like young producer mentorship / biz dev rep idea, and then go upstream, raise your floor revenue minimum.
Yep.
Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. A couple of questions for you. So what do you see as being, you've gone 0 to $1 million, 0 to 1.2 twice now. What do you think it'll be easier to go from 1 to 2? Do you think 0 to 1 is easier or 1 to 2 will be easier?
I think I think the next 500,000 might not be that bad. 1 to 1.5. I think starting to get past that is going to get tricky. And I've never done it before, so I can't speak to that. But I've talked to a lot of guys who kind of have been stuck at the 1.5 mark. And so I think 1.5 to like 2 to 2.5 would be trickier. I don't, it's going to just look different. Right. And I don't know if that matches my skill set. I'm more of like the call, stick to the basics, all that. So that's where, for me personally, it could be more challenging. But to a guy who's more enjoys the networking, all that stuff, it could be easier, And so I don't know.
I don't think it's revenue though. I think it's number of clients. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, and types of clients, right? Revenue is a misguiding. You can have the easiest client in the world, they're 100K of revenue, right? So and
like
if you have a
when I was
10K
in-
deal, that's pain.
I'm sorry, I keep talking over you. I feel like when I was in production, it was like that 750 to 900 mark. It was breaking $1 million, and that's just because it's ENS here. You get a lesser percentage, and there's smaller clients versus where you are in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, all that. You know what I'm saying? So I could be wrong, totally talking out of my ass here, but I think it's number of clients. I think it's like that 60 to 75 mark.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. Did you see my note?
You got to roll. Oh, he sent me a message. I got to roll. All right. This is his nice way of saying I got to go. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Micah, you can sign off. Guys, we appreciate you. Listen to this episode. Everything you need, links, producer playbook, newsletter, it's all in the show notes. If you're wondering why Micah was getting really awkward at the end, it's because he was trying to tell me he has to go and I didn't read the message. Well, see you later. Catch you next week.
Adios.
We're just keeping it real.